Welcome everybody to another episode of the In the Paint Show presented by Ballislife, episode 121. Big episode this week. We have a lot to talk about, so stick with us, guys. We appreciate your listening in and watching on YouTube. We're going to be talking about high school madness, March Madness, and a bunch of other topics. We're going to go a little long. We have a lot to talk about. So, Ronnie and Chelsea, I appreciate you guys coming on.
Oh, no, for sure, man. It's another week, another episode. We got a whole lot to talk about. State championships, Lakers, NCAA tournament. I mean, we got everything.
Let's try to avoid the Lakers for right now.
Yeah.
That's what you had on the sheet.
Oh, God. Yeah, let's avoid the Lakers.
Not doing the Lakers today, Ronnie. Enough is enough. Yeah, enough is enough. I can talk about them.
Yeah, let's jump in about the high school stuff. Obviously, Ani, you're in Louisville, so you made the trek to San Antonio to watch the UIL state championships. I was in Sacramento after watching the Pac-12, a little bit of the Pac-12 tournament. Let's talk about Duncanville. We're hopefully going to have Coach Peavy up on the show as one of our guests today. They obviously ran the gauntlet, did it, won the 6A title. This is the fourth straight year they're the number one team in Texas. Talk a little bit about their semifinal win and their championship win, Ani.
Yeah, against the Atascocita, Coach Martinez, one of the best coaches in the state of Texas. And then he had Chris Dyer, who used to be the head coach at DeSoto, who won a couple state championships. Atascocita was a tough one. It was like 31-9. They jumped at them early. Yeah, they spaced the floor out, burned some clock. Duncanville really couldn't get to the paint, which is what they're really successful at. Their defense really generates their offense, especially in transition. And, man, I mean, Atascocita jumped on them early with making threes. I think they were 7 for 11 from deep early on. And then, Peavy made a really good adjustment by going small. And, as Atascocita is trying to slow the pace down, the guards are pressure up on them, stealing the ball, getting transition buckets. Then all of a sudden, a 22-point deficit becomes a 13-point at halftime. And that's kind of unfamiliar territory for Duncanville because, they've been winning for the most part. They've never really been down by double digits, especially 20 points. But came back second half, really got after it by fourth quarter. They had a lead probably by 6-7 points. It just kept opening up from there. So that Atascocita game was a really good game. At first, you're wondering if this is the meltdown from Duncanville. You see guys kind of arguing with each other a little bit, but it shows that they've been there before. So, that's a big thing. Then the championship game against McKinney wasn't as eventful. Wasn't as eventful like the semifinal game. Handled them pretty good. It was like they were up by 24 at one point. Third quarter, McKinney kind of made a run, but Anthony Black, Ron Holland, all those guys, they're just too much for them. And I mean, and Duncanville won a state title, and they didn't have their supposed starting point guard CJ Ford for majority of the season, who's committed to Northern Arizona. So I mean, that Duncanville team's loaded, and that finals game was pretty clear cut. I left early.
Anticlimactic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anticlimactic. And obviously, Duncanville played the national schedule. We had invested interest in California a bit because Centennial is a public school. Duncanville's a public school. They obviously played in Thanksgiving Hoop Fest, and they were able to beat them in Sierra Canyon on back-to-back days. And that was basically been our two best teams in California for the last, 3 or 4 years. So obviously I was in Sacramento, and our guest Tarek, the SoCal News Group, was also there. And he's also covering the Bruins beat, for the newspaper. So we're going to bring him on in a few minutes to talk about that. But yeah, at the Golden One Center, we had, Centennial. People thought Centennial might roll Modesto Christian after they beat Campolindo. They beat Campolindo basically at the buzzer, 63-60. Aiden Mahaney going to St. Mary's, missed a three-pointer. It looked pretty good. I don't know if you saw the video on it. But
I did see the video.
It looked straight. I mean, it bounced off the rim, click, it dropped. So everybody's like, well, Centennial's going to roll after. They really rolled Sierra Canyon pretty good in the SoCal final. Obviously, it's always the NorCal with SoCal, and we had good fan support. I want to ask you before we bring on Tarek, how was the fans like? Were they back in Moss? Because California hasn't had a state final in 2 years. What was the feel of the fans like there at the Alamo Dome? And were they kind of like was it like a March Madness feel, or are people still like, okay, we're glad we're back, but let's take it easy here?
It had its March Madness feel the later, like each day, like I wouldn't say each day, just
it definitely had its March Madness feel. I know what you mean. So we're gonna bring on Tarek here. Tarek, like I said, was with me at the state finals. Tarek, are you there?
Yes, sir. I am here.
Appreciate you jumping on. Thank you for joining the In the Paint podcast. Tarek, let's just talk about your general observations of the state tournament. Obviously, we hadn't had one since 2019. What did you think about it? Obviously, the fans came back. It was a pretty good showing. Obviously, with Outgrove there in D2, there was a local team, so they were able to fill in and then get ready for Sierra Canyon girls and Centennial to watch them against Modesto Christian.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, right? I had been there the last 2 years, 2018, 2019, and then came back for the 2022 finals. And yeah, I just kind of felt like back at home a little bit, right? You're seeing familiar faces, you're seeing familiar teams, schools, coaches, and media members and so on. So the feel of it felt very normal, and that's always fun. So initial thoughts are just, hey, great to be back, good basketball, no problems, smooth weekend. Can't argue with any of that.
Yeah, definitely. It was pretty smooth. The fans seemed into it. The CIF announced that there was about 5,500 on Friday and almost 8,000 on Saturday. Was that the range you thought as far as attendance, Tarek? And what did you take of the crowd's enthusiasm level?
I thought the enthusiasm was really good. Again, I just think there was a thirst to see high-level basketball again, right? You want to play games that there's high stakes, right? State championship at all costs. So, yeah, I thought there was good excitement. I was talking with some other people. They always thought the last 2 years it had been Sierra Canyon. And that's one of the anomalies about Sierra Canyon is here at home in Southern California, they're kind of like hated. And then they go on the road and everyone wants to watch them play. So that number probably would have gone up maybe 5,000-6,000, something like that if Sierra Canyon had made it. Other than that, I thought it was a great turnout and really good response.
Definitely. Were you surprised just in your highlight take that Modesto Christian gave Centennial a fairly good game? Obviously, they're one of the best public teams in the country. They're the best team in the state. I mean, they beat Sierra Canyon handily in the SoCal final. It wasn't even really a close game, and they were confident going in. So, what did you think about Modesto Christian?
Oh, I thought they were great. I was sitting next to a young reporter from the Modesto Bee, and I was like, yeah, give me some insight. He's like, the school's like 200 kids. A lot of the guys play football. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, man. We'll see how they match up. And I thought they played them real tough. And I think down the stretch, it was a really close game. I might even been tied with 3 or 4 minutes to go, right? And Corona Centennial hadn't been in a close game for the previous 10 games, 20-plus point blowout. So you're thinking, wait a minute, Centennial hasn't been in a close game in a while. We could see Modesto Christian pull it off, but that's not what happened. Donovan Dent made some crucial plays. Jared McCain hit a 3, and that was all she wrote. But very surprising, and actually glad it was not a blowout.
Yeah, definitely. So happy about that.
So Tarek, I'm going to chime in a little bit. Sorry, I got
please.
interrupted on my connection, but happy to have you with us. So what player impressed you the most in the Open Division boys game?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always Donovan Dent. That's just kind of like the guy I pick. I think so many times people think about Jared McCain, Devin Williams. And if you were to ask me, hey, who's maybe impressed you throughout the whole year? Devin Williams has really gone from beginning of the year to now. It's like, wait a minute, this guy's a real dude. Yeah. And so he's progressed so much. And I watched them so much of the playoffs because they played a lot of my local teams, Harvard, Westlake, Sierra Canyon. So I saw them over and over again. But Donovan Dent, man, I don't think there's anybody that can stay in front of him. And so that's just a problem in basketball. And so that's why other guys are so good, because he can make them better. So for me, Donovan Dent was the most impressive in that game.
What would and what's up, Tarek? What would you say, for Sierra Canyon, they got blown out pretty good that game. They've been having issues the whole season. What do you think led to them just kind of having this fallout especially
Oh,
going
man.
towards the end of the season.
Yeah. Gosh, I don't know if I want to spill all the tea, but it has been and this is an Andre Chevalier word. He said they were very fractured. That's just that's the word he used, a fractured team. I've been around that program for almost 8 years now. I really feel like I'm one of the closest people to that program, and I've seen the highs, I've seen the lows, and despite winning so many games, I would say this was a low season. The morale was low, the feel was low. It was just very odd, and you could tell there was not a lot of connection there. And when times got tough, the really close teams like Corona Centennial, they come together. There were times where you saw with your own two eyes, you don't even have to be a basketball person, Sierra Canyon would splinter when some of those tight moments came. And so last thing I'll say is they had beaten Harvard Westlake. So they lost to Harvard Westlake. A couple weeks later, they played Harvard Westlake, beat them. And that's the most together they looked. And that was before they played Corona Centennial. So we're all thinking, hey, wait a minute. That Sierra Canyon team shows up. Maybe they make it to the state final. And that was not the case. So I just think a little, maybe the basic too many cooks in the kitchen a little bit applied there for Sierra Canyon this season.
Yeah, that was my next question. Is like, do you feel like they were just like accumulating so much talent? It's kind of hard just to, there's going to be egos that are involved, especially when you got a lot of guys that are Division I talent, nationally ranked guys, and then kind of put them all on the team and win. That was my next question. It's like, you just feel like there were just, like you said, too many cooks in the kitchen.
Right. I just think to a certain point, if you watch Sierra Canyon, Andre Chevalier had no choice but to just play this helter-skelter approach, run them like 32 minutes, one ball, and like 11 guys. I mean, what do you do? So you got to run them. And I just think disciplined teams were able to pick that apart, and that showed later in the season. So you would see like Isaiah Elohim would play like 6-8 minutes.
Wow.
Like you're like, wait a minute, what? It's mind blowing. Like look down, like wait, he only scored 4 points. Kajani Wright, guys, he would play a lot, but sometimes he'd only score like 6 points. Yeah. So when you have egos like that at that level, and they're used to being the man, and they're not at least playing a lot, not even getting double digits, it creates a default friction, and that's hard to handle with teenagers. I mean, for sure these guys are still worrying about the math test tomorrow. I mean, there's just so much more than hoops at that level.
Right.
So it was just all together, man. It made it very, very difficult.
Sure. Yeah, and I agree with your assessment on Donovan Dent. I got to see him when they came down to Duncanville for Thanksgiving Hoop Fest. Really liked him. Really got to where he wanted to go to. Tough competitor. I thought, he was a kid that was kind of the X factor for that Corona team. And yeah, man, I'm just glad that he's just continued to improve. And I think he's a kid that because he's a 2023, correct?
No, senior.
He's a senior. Yeah. But definitely, I mean, I just think like the Division I basketball player, I think he's going to help someone at the next level. I really like just watching him play.
Yeah, there's nothing not to like about Donovan Dent.
Tarek, let's switch over to the positives of Sierra Canyon, the girls team. They lost in the Southern section final and then bounced back in the regional. Talk a little bit about that. Obviously, a lot of people know who Juju Watkins is. She's the best player in the state. Maybe she's the best player in the country. Talk about your impressions of her, having to watch her a bit besides the state championship game, then just putting on the show in the state championship game.
Yeah, I mean, her first points were NBA range, pull-up, transition, 3-ball, like nothing but, it's like, okay, here we go. And that was kind of that was my report, so to speak, after the game. My lead for the story was move over, boys. Like that you know what I'm saying? Everyone talks about the boys team when it comes to Sierra Canyon. The girls team has been just as good. Alicia Kamaki, the coach, 5 titles in 10 years. It's like no one's done that. She's unbelievable. So that team has its superstardom in its own right, and Juju Watkins just elevates the whole thing. She's so fun to watch, and that game was really lopsided, but people were still so engaged because of how great she is. Most
her
times you watch
level.
a lopsided game and you're like, okay, like I'm gonna go get some popcorn or something. But no, it's like people wanted to hang out and watch her. So very impressive, and they deserve all the credit. In fact, in the press conference, I asked specifically, hey guys, Sierra Canyon, we always think boys, but here you guys are. You're what do you have to say? Are you upset that they always get more shine? Is there a chip on your shoulder? I asked them, and the girls wanted, I think, like McKinley Randolph wanted to say something. I think Irene, they wanted to say something, but they left it to Coach Kamaki, and
Yeah.
She had a very like PR answer, but all that to say, it was very, very good. And they were great in their victory.
Yeah. What is, speaking of them, what is their next step for Juju? I mean, obviously they come back and win it again. Is she the best player in the country? Like, is she gonna, she's just gonna sign NIL deals and hang out? You just like, where does this go for this young lady? She's 6'1", 6'2", handles the ball like a guard, shoots it as quick as anybody on the court. It's like, what do you envision for her, Tarek?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. I'm hypothetically, I'm like, she could really trailblaze. We think about boys, and they have like the overtime elite, like G League option, or like they reclassify. There's so many things boys can do when they're really like at that next level. Well, she's ready to go like right now. Like she could probably help some D1 programs like today. And so I don't know if, like, obviously I would assume she's going to finish high school and stuff like that, but does she go to college? I don't even know, like, what the WNBA rules are. Could she go to college for 1 year and then go to the WNBA? Like, no. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what they are, but maybe she's an example that like changes that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the WNBA basically operates on an age kind of restriction. So technically, you don't qualify until you're in like your 4th year when you hit that, 22, So sometimes now with the age difference, there's, a couple juniors that would finish their junior season and in the summer they would turn 22, so they would qualify. But so you don't have to really have your degree, but based on the age limit, it's like you should be getting your degree at this point. So that's kind of when you're eligible to enter the draft. Wow. So yeah, the WNBA
I didn't know that. Wow. Yeah, so what I'm saying, like she could maybe like, I don't know if they change the rules for her because she's a star. Like they might. No, absolutely. That league probably needs her. Like,
and
why
people
not?
People have raised, that question kind of recently with some of the Division I, sophomores that we have. We have Caitlin Clark that we talked about, Ronnie previously on the show. Some of these girls that are, you look at them and you kind of think maybe they're generational or maybe they're ready for the WNBA right away. And unfortunately, the WNBA is not ready for them. And it's not even really from a talent standpoint, but just the structure. And just speaking of like the overtime elite and stuff, that's what the women's game is missing. We don't have those developmental leagues, those developmental, routes to kind of navigate to prepare for the WNBA, which is kind of why you see a lot of players having to go overseas and do other things because really there's just nowhere to go. If you can't be on the WNBA, 12 teams, 12 girls, 144 players, then what?
That's great insight. Yeah, I did not know that. That kind of sounds like baseball, Ronnie. Like you either not even, you don't even have that choice. You have to go for like 3 years before you can do anything after. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Kind of like the NFL.
NFL. Yeah.
You have to have 3 years out.
But I think the NFL is more understandable because it's grown men kind of.
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
Is your body
19-year-olds out there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But, Tarek, let's switch gears now. Honestly, the NCAA Tournament, March Madness, you enjoy it. All of us enjoy it. We're all well versed in that. You covered the Bruins, so you're going to be heading to the East region. What's your high take line there on with a seed they got? Obviously, the Bruins got a 4 in the East. Was that kind of what you expected them to get, a 4, or were you surprised they didn't get a higher seed? What's your highline take on the Bruins?
Yeah, I think 4 was about right, maybe a 3, but I just, and you're probably not going to like this answer, but, it's all Cronin the guys are talking about. Like, they themselves proved, like, seeding doesn't mean squat. Like, that's the mentality that they're coming in with. And Cronin was even like, if you told me I had a couple guys injured and I was a number 1 seed, I would trade it for a 4 seed being healthy. Like, he just doesn't care. So, again, I've been on the beat for 2 years, and that's what I've experienced is like anybody can beat anybody. So for me, they're, now they don't have a play-in game. That's a step up for them. They went from the first 4 to the final 4 last year. So for them, they're like, they're loving it. And the whole team comes back, plus Peyton Watson for the most part, no Mac Etienne. But anyway, so I think they have a favorable matchup in Akron. I think St. Mary's is going to be tough, but I see UCLA winning through the weekend, right? Going to the Sweet 16. So we'll see.
Do you see UCLA potentially make it to the Elite 8?
For the most part, I don't see it. Yeah, I know. I don't see it. I see them getting through the weekend. And and maybe the Sweet 16s for them. I don't know. Of course, none of us know, but I don't see it. I don't see like another Final Four run. You asked me about the Elite Eight. Okay, I could see that more, but I don't know if there's another deep run in UCLA. I don't know why I'm getting that feeling. Certainly, as I cover them and I travel with them, it would be fun if they kept going through personally. Like that's my selfish prayer. But when like looking at the team, I don't know. I just think it's a very convoluted bracket. I really think anyone can beat anyone this year. How many? I don't know if there was like a record for how many number one, like the top 5 was so every week. It was just new teams, different teams. And it just kind of tells me that anybody can get anybody.
Yeah, like we had that one Saturday where the top 6 teams all lost.
There you go.
And it's never happened before either.
Right. So, like, talk about Peyton Watson. He's like a very interesting player, right? You see him in draft boards, even though he's averaging like 3 points, 3 rebounds a game. But he comes along, has those games where he shows flashes. How big would he have to be for UCLA to get a deep run?
Yeah, that's the interesting, and Ronnie will get a kick out of this because I'm one of the rare beat guys. Like I do high school and college, so okay, I didn't cover Peyton Watson a whole lot, but I saw him plenty. All these guys on this roster, if you would have told me Jaime Jaquez from Camarillo was like the go-to guy on a Final Four run, like what? No, man, right. No way. So I've seen all these guys develop. Peyton Watson, I do see him on the draft board still, and I think so many people scratch their heads because when they think about these McDonald's All-American freshmen, they're thinking like, oh, come in, average like 8 to 12, maybe more points a game. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Like sometimes he barely plays. So I think it's tough. It's tough for him to crack the rotation sometimes, and it's tough for him to stay on the floor sometimes because of what Mick Cronin wants out of him. And so that's a challenge. However, I will say he's hands down their most athletic and dynamic player. So, he's good. Even though it's like a late rotation, he'll help and block a shot off the backboard and everyone goes nuts, right? Or he'll go by someone and dunk it. So he's had these flashes, but I just don't know what kind of role he's going to have in this run because I've seen him in the really, really tight games. He doesn't play a whole lot. So I don't know how much he's going to play in the NCAA tournament.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, Chelsea.
Sorry. Okay. So Mountain West got 4 teams in, West Coast Conference got 3, Pac-12, 3. What do you think of that and the recruiting, that those conferences have made, while the bottom of the Pac-12 has struggled? Like what's your opinion on that?
Yeah. Good for them. I saw an interview with Drew Timme from Gonzaga and he said he was like sweating San Francisco or something like that. Like, man, I think that, and he's like, I think it's great that they got in. Now we have the same amount of teams in the national tournament than the same amount as a Pac-12.
Sure.
So again, the Pac, it's really like this roller coaster for the Pac-12. I think last year everyone was like, oh, they're underrated, and they had all these teams make these great runs, and now it's only 3 teams are in. So like, what is the Pac-12? That's like the spectrum from one side to the other in 1 year. So I think when the other conferences are getting in, it's great for those conferences. Despite what anyone might think, I think the Pac-12 is always going to be a Power 5 conference. So that's not going to go. That's not going to go away, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it. So I think the other conferences getting teams in, good for them.
I'm excited because I'm a Mountain West girl, San Diego State alum. So I'm happy to see us get love. I feel like we always have competitive, kind of teams that are right on the bubble, maybe last 4 in. San Diego State, my school, has made a lot of noise in the tournament, especially under Coach Fish, who obviously, retired a couple years back. And we have Dutch now kind of at the helm of things. But, I always think it's good for that conference. There's a lot of talent. And to see, us have so many teams. I don't know the last time the Mountain West had 4 teams in. So, progress and good for the conference for sure.
Would you say, because we talk about how open the NCAA tournament is, like we don't know, like we're going to, and every year is like that, but this year I think it's more open. Would you say outside of like teams that are like the 1, 2, 3 seed, like anywhere after that, there really aren't any upsets?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I haven't like scoured the bracket all that much. I'm just like I'm over here writing up like all CIF stuff like for the high schools, and now I'm like writing the UCLA stuff. So I have not scoured the bracket too much. So I don't know if I can answer that question. But like I said earlier, I just think kind of like what we were talking about, when the top 6 seeds all fall on one day or whatever the stat was. I just think that's a little bit of a forecast. Like, anybody can get anybody. We might have the most upsets ever or something. I don't know. We just have to wait and see. But it wouldn't surprise me if it was just this bracket buster type year for everybody.
Yeah. So, Tarek, you're going to Portland. How often you been to Portland, and are you looking forward to maybe getting to that East region and getting out there and seeing the other teams?
Sure. Yeah. Only been to Portland one time, and I was in high school, so I really don't remember much because it was just not that. I just wasn't thinking about the city at the time. And now, just gonna go and see how UCLA matches up. I mean, I'm excited to get there. There's like a huge schedule of being able to watch the teams practice, right? Like you get to watch the teams practice, you get to go to all their press conferences and stuff like that. So get a feel. That'll be my first time. Last year, I did not get to go to the Indianapolis like bubble, so to speak.
Sure.
So we had our USC beat writer kind of like was on double duty because everything was in one place. So I was on the high school stuff because all the sports were going on at one time. So this time, I think USC, if I'm not mistaken, is in South Carolina. So I'm going to go to Portland and looking forward to it. Going to have some fun. And that's about it. I mean, we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, I think you'll get to go to Philly. I think they'll make it past the first 2 rounds too.
Agreed.
So we'll see you in Philly, and that's where it'll get tough for the Bruins. So we appreciate Tarek. We appreciate you coming on, giving us the insight, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it. Take care. Yeah, so you see that, Tarek is kind of doing double duty, and I know that he's covering the Bruins, but I think he's being honest. Outside of, the few top seeds, guys, I don't think people know. We would want to try to guess and make good picks. And like you said, he's covering the high school stuff, and I think the Bruins are going to make it to the second thing. I think they're just too talented, and they got that experience. The team I'm worried about is from the Pac-10 is like USC. How good is the third team in the Pac-12? They have their days, they have their moments. Even Arizona, they lost a conference game on the road, and we'll talk about the Wildcats here in a little while. Like they looked, times they look good, and then at times they look very average. So it's very interesting that I went to the Pac-12 game on Thursday. It was the morning game, and Kerr got hurt. I go, man, this is going to be tough for them. So then I went to their practice at Bishop Gorman on Wednesday, and it was just they were just running everything so tight. Their sets are tight, and I don't mind that because that's how Tommy Lloyd has won with that team. They go inside, and I said, man, I was commenting with a couple other people. I was like, man, this is a really tight shit they run. And they run their sets and they want to get it inside. And I was like, I wonder if they played a little bit more open, how would it be?
A little more loose.
Yeah, a little more. Sure enough, Kirk gets hurt on Thursday morning. So Dalen Terry moves to the point, and now they just run. Now they're running
right.
So kind of opened up everything for them. So it'll be very interesting to see if, when Kirk comes back, if he goes back to the point and Terry slides to the 2 and the 3, or do they kind of stay with the momentum they have now? Ani, were you able to watch a little bit of that Pac-12 tournament and then see the highlights of the championship?
Yeah, I did. It's funny when you talk about Dalen Terry because being at the point, because I know in high school that was kind of primarily what they were selling him as. So when Kerr got hurt and he got in, it was just I got to see him like NBA Top 100 camp, but I got to see a couple of games and just seeing how loose he was and like seeing him just kind of play more free and seeing him get up and down. And even still showing their inside presence with Isaiah Mobley. You know, when they're clicking, they're really good. I got to see a little bit the Pac-12 games. Like you said, UCLA just so talented. I don't see, like, I know that St. Mary's game, assuming that they do win, that's going to be a really tough one because they really spaced the floor. I mean, they beat Gonzaga. So, I mean, that's going to be a tough one. But like you said, like, they're really talented. I mean, when you talk about Johnny, Jaquez, Tiger Campbell. I mean, they're just loaded. But I got to see UCLA some. I mean, they're really talented. Just be interesting to see how they kind of just advance in the tournament because they're another team, just like Arizona. Well, they're different from Arizona. I think when there's trouble, they know because they're experienced, they know how to fight through it, which I think allow them to get to the Sweet 16, potentially the Elite 8. Whereas like Arizona, you know, like you talked about earlier, when adversity hits, they really seem to struggle. It's not like you go from a team making a 10-0 run and then they stop it. They can go a 10-0 run, they can be a 16-2 run, on Arizona. So that's just kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I talked to Chelsea about that. We were talking about the tournament last weekend and offline, and I was like, Arizona, again, this is what the lineup they had before the injury. It was like, they get down 8 or 10, they start jacking threes, they panic a little bit, So again, maybe they were down 12 or 13 against UCLA. Maybe with Terry, and he's just a loose kind of guy, and like people rally to him. He has a great, personality off the court. I've gotten to know him well over time, and they're just loose. He's one of the most magnetic players in all the tournament. If you're 6'7", 6'8", you can handle the ball, find guys, willing to find guys. People like that. So we'll talk about that bracket in the Pac-12. Chelsea, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about San Diego State. What do you think of them in their matchup in the 8-9? What do you think is realistic for them? I know Matt Bradley's had a great year. He's obviously come over from Cal, and Dutch, like you said, has built that team. They've gotten some transfer portal guys, and they have a good system and a good program. So what do you think about their game?
Honestly, I was a little bit disappointed, with their seeding. I thought, they lost in the Mountain West Conference Championship game by a possession to, Boise. But we beat Colorado State twice, who was, I think, ranked the highest in the Mountain West at the time, maybe 23rd or 24th, kind of towards the end of it. So, I guess that, not finishing the conference tournament loss kind of, kept them at an 8 seed, which is usually right where they usually are. San Diego State is always on pace to be in the middle. Everybody knows that they're a defensive-minded team. They're going to come. They're going to be athletic. They're going to sit in a stance. The struggle that we've always had, even though I love Matt Bradley, he's, a new addition to the team or whatever, but it's always been shooting. It's always been San Diego State has a lot of athletes. Sure. And they're going to play defense and they're going to out-athlete you. And how are they shooting on this day? If they're shooting really good and the defense is going, then boom, they can beat anybody. But on the days that they're not shooting, and they're sitting down and they're hopefully getting stops, the problem I just feel in the past that we've had is just hadn't have enough scoring. So, I'm excited that we get another opportunity. Brian Dutcher is a friend of mine. I'm a guy that was, Steve Fisher's assistant when I was actually a student at San Diego State in 2010, 2013. So we're just happy that they're back. This is, I think, his, I don't want to say maybe 5th season coaching now, and he's only missed the tournament once. So we're on pace. We're going to make some noise. We're going to represent the Mountain West Conference well, like we always do. Last year, we had an early upset against Syracuse. So I'm excited to see if we can, make a little bit of a push and be a sleeper team. So, yeah. Yeah,
the 8-1 against Kansas would be a hell of a game if they get by Creighton. And, speaking of the Mountain West, and Tarek mentioned it a bit with the West Coast Conference, WCC. I just think the exposure that Gonzaga's given them has helped that conference a lot. And like you said, I think what Fisher did over time helped that conference, meaning the Mountain West, a lot. I wanted to bring that up because we have a situation with LSU that's similar to something Coach Fisher went through. I want to ask you this, Ani. Coach Fisher was at Michigan, and they had a hell of a team. Yeah. And then Bo Schembechler is like, I want a Michigan man. I don't care if he's going, if Bill Frieder's leaving, he ain't coaching this tournament. He's out. Look, he's out. So they got rid of him right before the start of the tournament, and they were expected to do really well. And then Fisher was the assistant, so he comes in and they win the national title. So obviously, I know you three don't think LSU is going to win the national title, but Ani, what do you think LSU is going to do? Will Wade is out. It's like you have a new coach right when the tournament starts. They have a pretty good team. The SEC is really tough. The teams beat up on each other, but like they got some players, But now does this fire them up, or do they just tank? Like, oh man, this Will Wade's gone.
You know what? That's an interesting question. I don't really know. I've been around, so I know Nickelberry. Me and him talked actually yesterday some. So he says they're pretty confident. They want to go out and win. Obviously, a lot of those kids will as a recruit, as a head coach, he's very, he likes to really recruit the guys He talks to guys. He builds relationships. He's a big relationship guy with his players. So I know that did hurt. But I think the guys are motivated to play. Like you said, I don't see them winning a national championship or even making a Final Four run. But they're talented. Like, Tyree Eason, Gaines is good. Darius Days, Efton Reed, he comes in and he provides some interior presence. They're going to be a team that can, win a few games potentially. But, right now, when I talk to Nickelberry, he says that they seem pretty motivated. Talked to Taz Mitchell too. He seems like the guys are, they want to get at it. Like I think last year they lost to Michigan in the Sweet 16, I believe. It was a fairly close game. So, there's some motivation there just to, kind of prove themselves and get back to that point. But I think it'll be tough. They're talented, and when they're clicking, especially defensively, they're like the number one defense at one point, NCAA. So like when they're clicking, they're good, but it's gonna be tough. I mean, they got a really tough road.
Yeah, it's just very interesting that he gets fired like that, and Christian Dawkins basically has to report to prison right around the six. It's very ironic. And here comes Sean Miller. His old team is now number one.
Yeah.
Sean Miller is going on TV saying Arizona's going to win it all. Will Wade gets fired, and Christian Dawkins is going to jail right around the same time. And it's just like, wow, all the things that happened with the corruption scandals happening at the same time. And I think Christian Dawkins had a couple of weeks ago had tried to get a motion through his lawyer to have like a retrial because the federal investigator, or the undercover as we call him, was like spending money at a Vegas casino when he was trying to investigate these guys. And it's just, wow, just like a crazy sequence of events. And you just never know. Like you mentioned, I have some vested interest in Alice a little bit because Tari grew up in California, and then he moved to Washington where he went to high school. And then they also have a Bishop Gorman player, Milwani Wilkinson, who was a JV player most of his career. And then he finally got to work on the perimeter skills, and like he's a pretty good player down there. So
supreme athlete for sure.
Yeah. Milwani's like a supreme athlete. He's barely learning the game. He's getting better all the time. Obviously, he's an SEC player. So there's a lot of teams like that. Wanted to get your guys' take, as we mentioned, the amount of teams from the power conferences or from the best conferences. The Big Ten, nine teams. Big East, Big 12, SEC 6. That sounds about right. ACC 5. Our Mountain West 4, WCC and Pac 3, and American and the A10 2. Chelsea, we talked a little bit about the Big Ten. We talked about some of their teams. We know 9 teams. Are they this good? Are any of those teams going to get to the Final Four?
I want to say no, but the conference, it's tough. And when you look at their strength of schedules and who they're playing, I think it's deservingly so because of the schedules. Sure. Sometimes you don't have the, the best record in the win-loss column, but you're playing tough competition. And that's basically why they had so many teams in. I would say no. If I had to guess who's going to be the national champion, I have my predictions. It's kind of I have my predictions, but I'm going to say no. Yeah.
Well, they're in the 6-11 against Colorado State. We mentioned Colorado State earlier. I seen Michigan. I was telling you, Chelsea did live. I
know Michigan, but because Michigan, it's crazy because I got the vibe that they didn't even feel like they were going to be dancing. I follow them on social media. I follow them on social media. I have a kid that who went to high school in Vegas and Frankie, so I kind of follow them and I want to see how he's doing, see if they're doing well. And to me, they just kind of seemed shocked that they were dancing. They know they had kind of a disappointing, season overall. I believe they started maybe ranked 4th in the country when the season started, and they dropped all the way out of the top 25, and just kind of were disappointing to the end. And what happened with Juwan Howard at the end of the season and him not coaching, so he wasn't available. So I got the vibe that, they're just kind of happy to be here, and maybe it's a little rejuvenating. Maybe it's like, hey, not so much pressure. This is the situation we're in. Like, it's 0-0 now. It doesn't matter kind of what happened. Now let's get it. So
I think the pressure is off them a little bit too, like you said. I just think overall their foot speed, all the Big Ten foot speed. I'm like, when's the last time a team with slow split speed, a grinded out team has won the whole thing? I just can't remember.
Yeah,
that'd be an early 2000s type situation.
Yeah, maybe a little bit with yeah, I can't think of a situation like that of a team that's just kind of like a grinded out team that won the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think Indiana, like you said, went to the final that year, Ani, but Maryland beat them after they beat Duke, after Maryland had lost in the semifinals the year before. But yeah, it'd be very interesting. They go 0-9. When I saw 9, I was like, for reals, like they're gonna get 9.
I was even surprised I saw Michigan in there because I was like,
Michigan underachieved, unfortunately. They underachieved, but like I said, this is their second chance to do a little something, make a little noise at the end. If they can win a game, maybe 2, then I think that will make the season be decent.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they Purdue got a 3, and then a lot of people are saying them versus Kentucky. What's your guys' take on Kentucky and that East bracket that we talked about? Obviously, Baylor is the number 1 seed, and then you got Kentucky. Some people are. If people are not picking Arizona, the guys who follow national college basketball on a daily basis, if they're not picking Arizona, they're picking Kentucky. Why is that? What do you guys see there? Can Purdue give them a good game in the 8, or is Baylor going to go through?
I think Kentucky, it's hard to blow them out. Like every game I've seen, they just stay steady. Like, even when I saw them play, even the games that they lost, it's like you think that team's pulling away, then they come back. They just know how to always stay in games. And like with Oscar Schwebe, Sabir Wheeler, you got some guys that are older. It's not the typical Kentucky team with a bunch of freshmen that are leading the charge. You got some older guys. And I think Coach Cal does a good job, getting the guys. Well, and I think the guys do a good job just following the game plan and just staying solid. And they're just a team why people feel like they'll make it out in that division just because they're so consistent. What they're going to bring every time, even though they may lose a game, but you never seen like a 10 or 12 point loss. It's always like right in there. And I think they'll click at the end. I think the guys are going to come together. And but I'm a Texas guy. I got Baylor.
I like Baylor. I like the way they play.
I love the way they're playing. Guys like Sohan, who's really been coming along, and the guard play with Akinjo. I think Baylor's really, really good defensively. They're really solid. But I think it's either Baylor or Kentucky that makes it out.
Sure.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on you a little bit, Ani, with Kentucky, like I like the point that you made just about the leadership that they have this year. I never bet on Kentucky when they have a whole bunch of freshmen, a lot of, one and done, people that are just going to be here, this season and gone the next. They finally you need some experience to make deep runs in this tournament and even to win. And I think Calipari knows that. I mean, he has one championship, but he's had some incredibly, incredibly talented rosters. And, credit to him, he makes it work, at least for the sake of getting to the tournament and, making deep runs. But I always think that that's their shortcoming. In the end, is sometimes just not having that leadership when things aren't going great and, the game's a little frazzled and emotions and stuff are high, just to have those people that can say, hey, hold on, and calm things down.
Right.
That makes the difference. But I really, really like Baylor. They won the national championship last year, and they did it off of defense. Davion Mitchell's gone now, but they have a lot of players that play the same way, just with the same mentality and hustle. So I'm always going to lean on a team that plays better on the defensive end than anything, because the tournament is tricky and you can't count on waking up and, making a whole bunch of shots every single game. Everybody would like to, but the defense can be a constant no matter what. You bring in the energy and the effort. If you can get stops, then, anything could happen.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Yeah. Ani, wanted to talk to you real quick about, like you said, Baylor. What's the deal? If you have any insight, I think it affects that. Could be a monster 8 game against Kentucky's LJ Cryer's foot. Is he okay? Is that overblown? Is he really hurt? How hurt is LJ Cryer?
Yeah, I mean, from what I got, he's hurt. And LJ, I know him since he was like 12 years old. So always kind of had a little issues with his foot and stuff like that. So when I heard about the injury, I was like, yeah, that's always kind of been a little bit of a lingering deal. I think he should be good. Sometime during the tournament, but that is a huge deal. I mean, at one point he was leading them in scoring. So, just a kid that can really make shots from deep, can get his own shot off the bounce. And, he was like that guy with Akinjo. I think Flagler, that's the kid, and then LJ. That just made Baylor so deadly offensively, and like Chelsea said, defensively they're just so good too. You know, they just had that balance that just makes them tough, and then you can kind of see the lack of presence of LJ Cryer being there. You know, it's resulted in some losses in the Big 12.
Gotcha. And they still got a number 1 seed with the 6 losses, as you said. So that East region, I think, like you guys said, boils down to them and Baylor. I doubt Purdue's going to get through as a 3 seed. I see Purdue's best teams with Conzo Martin, Big Dog Glenn Robinson. I'm like, and I still I chose against them every time. I remember my bracket. I was like, I'm not going to choose them to go to the Final Four, and they haven't made it yet.
Purdue might get stung by Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is all right now. You know, they just beat Duke in the ACC tournament, and you know, they play really hard. And you know, I think that people can't think Purdue's just going to get past that game. I see them winning the first game
because I have Virginia. Right.
Me too.
I have Virginia Tech beating Texas. I have Virginia Tech beating Texas, and then you know, potentially get into the Sweet 16. That's a Sweet 16 pick I have. Yeah. So
I'm with you. I'm with you there.
Yeah, you guys are on that one. Let's move over to the West. Obviously, Gonzaga is the number 1 seed. You know, we talked about them. You know, obviously they've been right on the cusp. Duke is also in that bracket, and we saw that Mike Krzyzewski's last game. North Carolina didn't look like they were going to get into the tournament at that time.
Right.
They knocked the dust out of them. I think, you know, Chelsea, that's your old school. Our guest, Chloe Wells, who we're going to talk a little bit about her experiences in Russia. She went to Duke, played ball, did. So you guys have some tie there to Duke. We all know Duke. Obviously, we all know my Coach K is like he's been such a staple of the sport for so long.
Absolutely.
And some people think they're really talented, but they really haven't put it together. Like they're talented offensively. I don't know if they get the stops they need. Obviously, Gonzaga may not be as good as last year, but like it may not matter. The field may not be as good, or people are saying they're not as good. Is there any other team there, or should we be looking at a Duke versus Gonzaga Elite 8 matchup?
I have my sleeper team is Texas Tech. I'm being honest. I told you I like defense, and I think they get after it. And all the other stuff, you know, with Duke, it really goes through their offense and how they're shooting and playing well that day. Their defense is the inconsistency. You know, just kind of from what I've seen. So I have Texas Tech be creeping in there, and it would not shock me if they got past Duke, being honest. And I also think it's super funny that the committee just loves to put like Duke and Michigan State in the same like bracket like every year.
Right.
This is like we want Duke and Michigan State no matter what. Like it's like a committee like unwritten rule. If both of them are in the tournament, they're gonna play each other. So that's kind of funny. But I have Duke getting past Michigan State, but I have them maybe not getting past Texas Tech. So
wow. Yeah, Texas Tech is a team that I know a little bit about. Like you said, they play a really good D. That you know, their offense going to be on? That's the same thing with Alabama. Alabama really didn't have like the season they wanted. You know, with my guy Jaden Shackelford down there, California guy. But they so inconsistent, and it's like now I've seen some of their SEC games, and it's really high level games, but maybe they can put a run. All they need to do is get hot. Like that's all.
That's literally it.
Right. Yeah, they're talented enough.
Yeah, they shoot a 30% clip from the 3. They got to shoot 35 to 38 over the course of 2-3 games, and maybe they can do something. Obviously, the safe pick is Gonzaga. You know, and will it be a rematch of that early game? Paolo Banchero against Chet again. Everybody was going crazy about early in the season, but I know you have a big interest in one game in that field, and so do I. It's Jalen Duran versus Chet in the second round. Talk about Memphis. Talk about the Penny Hardaway situation. He looked dead in the water halfway through the season, and he kind of figured it out a little bit, like addition by subtraction, subtraction by addition, however you want to call it. You know, what do you see there? Does Memphis get by the first round, and what do they do against Gonzaga?
Because I think Memphis has Boise State that first round, which is a tough one. I see them getting by. Memphis is deep. Like they're really talented, even though with no Monty Bates, they're deep. That's why they beat Houston in the first time. Obviously, they lost in the conference championship, pretty good. Sure. But you know, when Memphis is clicking, they're really, really good. I think they get by Boise. I think it's a 1 to 2 possession game. Against Gonzaga, I see Gonzaga winning, but I mean, you're talking about 2 big men in Chet and Jalen Duran. I mean, they're one of the best rim protectors in the country. Both of them are. That's going to be a really good matchup. Chet's obviously more skilled. Jalen's really kind of punishes you more inside. But I think Gonzaga beats Memphis. Obviously, Memphis, I think, in the country is one of the most talented teams in the country. And when they're clicking, they're really good. And when they're not, they're really bad. So, I see them getting past Boise. I see them giving a good game to Gonzaga in the first half, but I think when things have to really tighten up, I think that's where Gonzaga gets the win, because Memphis still plays a little bit too loose for my liking, and Gonzaga, even though they play fast, there is a little bit more discipline.
Gotcha. Yeah, Duke is in that bracket, as we mentioned, and want to let people know, our guest Chloe Wells, she went to Duke. She's from Southern California. And she wanted to talk a little bit about her experience in Russia. Obviously, Chelsea, we were on talking about that extensively last week. And obviously, you went to Duke and are overseas right now for, obviously you're in Israel. So, the thing that we had all this talking about, oh my God, what's going on with Brittany Griner? Let's get her home. And the only thing I've seen in the last week is that there is no additional information about it. Like people don't know nothing, which was, I was trying to say last week, like, you guys quit saying somebody get her back, the government get her back. Like, do we not know how serious this is? Like, I don't see any updates. It's
very serious.
Yeah, I got a little information that said the system she's in, as far as her legal system, that it's a 99.75% conviction rate, whatever that means. Like, if you get arrested, you're going to get convicted. Again, and we don't know, like, how fair things are. When something happens here to some of our friends or a prominent person, we're like, wait a minute, that wasn't right. He'll get off of that. Or like, she'll get out of that, or wait a minute, that pull over, that stop wasn't right. You didn't deserve that ticket. Like, we don't know if it's not like that. It's not everywhere in the country. So we wanted to get her take on it. She was in Russia. Thank God she made it home. So I also want to talk to her a little bit see what she thinks about Duke in the tournament. But the more serious pressing issue is obviously her experience there. So, she should be coming on here soon in a little while. So we'll keep going. We'll move over to the next region. But I'm with you, Ani. I want to see Jalen Duran and see him against Chet Holmgren. That's what makes – I think Gonzaga's going to get through that bracket. They just with the experience they have. But again, are they going to get over the hump? They're kind of like, one of these teams. Are they going to get over the hump, Ani? Do you think they can just get over the hump now? Like, they've been in the final championship game twice in 4 or 5 years. Is this the team that can get over the hump, or is it just too unpredictable right now?
Things too unpredictable. If I had to guess, I would say no. I think when they go against teams that have really good guard play, that play get up and down, and really challenges the bigs and pick and roll, that's where they really struggle. So that's kind of I don't think so. But I would say last year's team had the best chance. This year's team, they could. But I just think when they go against guys that really challenges their bigs in space, that's where the problem occur.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. Let's jump over to the Midwest region. We talked about that region a little bit. Obviously, LSU. We talked about San Diego State. USC's in that region. The number 1 seed is Kansas. Number 2 is Auburn. Again, we've talked about Auburn, Ani, a little bit, and what they're capable of or incapable of. And, in that region, USC Auburn intrigues me, but I don't know how good Bruce Pearl's guards are. I like Wisconsin too. There's LSU. Obviously our guy Jabari Smith is going to be a high pick. Everybody wants to see him and see him do good. That bracket has a lot of good players. When you think about some of the individuals, guys, they got Murray from Iowa. He might be the best player in the country. Maybe Jabari is. What's your take on that bracket or that region?
I think Auburn makes it out, even though their guard play can be a little interesting at times, be inconsistent. They're just so tough. And then Auburn gets after it. And I think Jabari has really grown as a player. He's someone that I was wondering, like, in big games, can he really produce? You kind of got to see that during conference play. Really like Auburn. I like Iowa. Keegan Murray's been one player that I really just enjoy watching. He's really improved every year. But I think Auburn makes it out. I think it'll be a little bit tough, but my second choice would be Iowa. I really like Iowa. I like the way they play. I like how how they just really get after it, and they've won some good games. out there. If there's a team that made a Final Four push, like I could see it Iowa, honestly.
You have Iowa getting past Kansas?
Yeah, I could see it.
Ooh.
Yeah, Iowa, because you think of, like you said, a National Player of the Year type. You got Johnny Davis, right, from Wisconsin. He's in that bracket. And you got Jabari, like 3 of the 4 best players in the country in the same bracket. Like, which, from an individual standpoint is pretty exciting, but maybe that's not going to make a big difference in the team. But I do notice that right away. And like we said, if we're not talking about Kentucky or Arizona, a lot of people are picking Iowa, Ani. They're just kind of like as a 5 seed, like how often does a 5 seed get through? And if there's any 4 or 5 seed, some people think that may be the pick. Wanted to go over that a little bit. Lowest seed to play for the national championship game is an 8. Butler, 1985 Villanova. And 1985 Villanova was a little bit of an anomaly because it was the last year before the shot clock. So they were just handling the ball. They had 3-4 guards. They moved it around and played Georgetown, a team that they got killed to twice in the tournament. So in 1980 Bruins, UCLA, they were almost all freshmen. They had Kiki Vandeweghe and a bunch of freshmen. So, no seed has been that low very often, 3 times in 40 years? So we talk about all these lower seeds and, I like this team. I like this 6. I like this 7. And then it really comes down to the top 3 seeds. So is there any other team besides Iowa in any of the regions that you guys see, Chelsea, or that through 4 or 5 that can go through?
I'm not seeing it, to be honest. Like, I don't have any team that's fresh in my mind that I can say they can, make some noise. I think Iowa, if anything, is a good pick. But I don't have Iowa getting past Kansas, to be honest. I like the Auburn coming out of the Midwest. I liked Auburn early in the year when they spent some time as the number 1. Yeah. But I don't see Iowa getting past Kansas. Just too big, too athletic. But as far as lower seeds making it, I can't see it. It's a rarity to have a high seed, I guess, actually make too much noise. So can't see it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, obviously I'm a big fan of Iowa. What would you say with Arkansas? They're a 4 seed. Like, would they be a high seed? I like Arkansas too. I don't think they make it out. But
they would get, let's say they get past Vermont, the 4-13, so they got UConn most likely. Then they take Gonzaga.
That's where it ends right there. That's the only other team I could see make a run outside the top 3 seeds.
Yeah. So based on what you guys are saying, it's like this is parity. It's wide open. We're saying it's been a crazy college basketball year, but we keep falling back to the top seeds. So what makes the big difference in your guys' mind, especially Chelsea? You're a college basketball player. You have a good sense of it. Is it the coaching being hot, or just the better players win most of the games? And to win 6 games in a row, you got to have the better players. What is the most important thing here?
In my personal opinion, I think it's just matchups. Ani talked a little bit about just style of play. Some teams like to run and gun. Big Ten teams are slow. They want to pound you in the paint. Like, it really just is obviously good coaching, because you have to have coaches that can adjust to pretty much any team that's in front of them. But it's a matchup thing. Sometimes, you're paired with somebody that you can beat, that, a top team isn't able to get past, because their one weakness is the strength of the team that, you're able to get past. So in my opinion, it honestly is just matchups. And sometimes it's a little bit of luck. Like, there's teams, every team, whether they want to admit it or not, besides the initial, matchup, there's somebody that they want to avoid, or they have a preference. Like, if we can squeak around Auburn, or we can squeak around, because somebody else upsets them. And then that's when their opportunity is to come in and kind of, make way for them to make some noise. So to me, it definitely comes down to coaching. You have to have a good coach. You 100% have to have the players, not necessarily the best players, because we've seen Kentucky have, top picks in the draft, or, a lot of teams have one and dones, and their teams aren't successful because they just don't have the experience, which I feel is key. But to me, I think it just boils down to a little bit of luck and matchups that are suitable for how you play, basically who you're going to play against.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, go ahead, On.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Those two, and I think most of these teams that make the Final Four, win the championship, they at least have at least two NBA guys, even if it's
absolutely
guy or something. Like at the end of the day, like you're going to have to at least need two pros, and
sure.
really.
I'm not in college, but I get you.
You know what I mean? Like you got to have two guys that are they're dudes. Well, not even like dudes. Like they're going to be in the NBA to some capacity. I think most teams that win national championships, that's generally what they have. But I agree with Chelsea. Like luck and the matchups got to be right. When you just go against, like, if you're a team like a Big East team that kind of really plays with the bigs, and you go against a team that plays fast, that really plays with their guards, it could be a tough matchup. Even though maybe on paper you're the better team, but it's not the good matchup. Who you're going against.
Gotcha. So let's switch gears here. I believe we have our guest Chloe Wells ready to come on. Again, we talked about the seriousness of the issue with Brittany Griner. And she was in Russia, so that gives us some good insight. And she's definitely back home now, so we're glad. Chloe, are you there?
Yes. You hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Chloe.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah. Welcome to the In the Paint Show, Chloe. Wanted to get your, just your take. Glad you're back home. Just take us through, the experience first of being in Russia. How long? When did you get there? And how many seasons have you been playing in Russia?
This is my first season in Russia. I got there October 1st, and it was brutal. Just the weather and just the people. It was pretty rough. I got there on October 1st, and it was snowing. Like, I'd never seen the ground. I was in Siberia, so it was negative 20 degrees. I'm talking about Fahrenheit. It was negative 20, and it was dark 6 months out the year. So just that part alone, the environment was just really tough. And at first, it took me a while to get going. So I was having just decent games, in my opinion, but my teammates were happy. My coaches were happy with it. But to me, I wasn't satisfied, and it was too cold to go outside. So I was kind of in a dark place, I was just in the house, in my feelings, and just stuck pretty much. So that alone was it was a rough, 3 months for me. And then I came out of my slump, and I was just like, you know what? No, I belong here. I think at first for me, I was playing against the best in the world. Like, every team had 3 WNBA players on it. I think I was one of the only imports that hadn't either touched the WNBA or anything like that. And I had asked my agent to get me on the stage like that. And so I asked for this, but it was time to, step up to the challenge. And it was rough at first. But then my teammates and my coaches, they were very encouraging and supportive. And I was able to come out of that. And I started averaging maybe 18 and 10 for the last 6 or 7 games before I left. So it was a nice turnaround for me.
Got you. Chloe, I haven't been all over Europe. Chelsea has great experience and great insight on being in different countries. When I think of Russia, I think of Moscow. So were you in Moscow? Are most of the games in Moscow, or is there other little cities you have to travel to on a weekly basis?
Yeah, I was in Siberia. So I was far away from Moscow, 4.5 hours flight from Moscow. Most of the teams, though, they're probably about six or seven teams that are either in Moscow or very close to Moscow. So we did a lot of traveling towards that area, and that's a much better area. There's more stuff to do. It's not as cold. So that place is much better. But no, there's more teams outside of Moscow that aren't experiencing that Moscow feel that you're talking about.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, jump in there, guys.
So kind of, Chloe, I want to talk a little bit about just when the turmoil, and you kind of got noticed that, Russia may be going to war, they're thinking about invading Ukraine. What was the feel like from your team and your management? Was the management communicating with you? Are they talking about what's going on? Are they saying, downplaying the situation? Are they in agreement with the Russian government? What kind of information were you getting from your teammates and the people around you? And, how did it kind of affect your decision to, I guess, want to get out of there?
Yeah. So Russia as a whole, they have a kind of censorship where the people there we didn't feel like there was a war going on. Where I was at, it was about 4.5 flight from where the Ukrainian border was. So there was no feeling of a war is here, it's brewing or anything like that. I didn't even know that anything was happening until people back home were reaching out to me. Like, hey, do you see what's going on? Like, you know, and they were sending us, you know, sending me and my teammates like different stuff from the media. And we were like, oh, this is getting serious, you know? So then we started to reach out to our agent. But at no point in time was the team or the coaches or general manager like, oh, this is getting serious. You guys need to get out of here. They were kind of like, you know, it's no big deal. Like, look around. Do you feel like anything's going on? Like, you're good. And I'm like, you know, this is not right. You know?
Yeah.
So, but it was crazy because I felt good enough to return. I came back home for national team break. I think it was February 16th was when my flight was to go back. And my parents, we had a big argument. Like, Chloe, do not go back there. This is crazy. And I'm like, you guys, I don't feel that. Like, things seem okay. I want to go back and at least finish my contract if I can or whatever. So I went back. And then 2 weeks after that, things got even more crazy. Then the airways started to close down. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, I don't want to get stuck out here.
Yeah, I got to get out of here.
Yeah. And that's when I really noticed how important, like, having a team around you is, because I had to switch agencies after this season because just the lack of aggression and, like, sense of urgency to get me out of a situation that was so serious. Like, for instance, so we saw that it was going crazy and that the airways were closing down. And so it got to a point where all the other Americans were out of there. We had played a team called Nika, and they had 2 Americans on there, Azarae Stevens and Ty Harris, I think her name is. And that night we played them. They were there at the game. Okay. When we were leaving that city to go back to return to our city, they were on the flight with us leaving to go home. Yeah, they were like, oh, no, we're out of here. And then so
wow.
Yeah, Epiphany and Natasha Howard, they were on a course team. Their game had got delayed. They didn't even play that time because they were closer to the border. And they were like, look, we're getting out of here. It's time for you guys to go. So I was like, oh, okay, this is serious, you know? And I was hitting my agent like, hey, I'm ready to go home. Let's go. Let's do this. And he's like, oh, okay, you know, I'll talk to the team. And he's like nonchalant. So I'm like, okay, like, come on, you know? And so they had called a meeting with me the next day. So I'm thinking like, oh, okay, he talked to them, like it's time to go. In the meeting, they were like, okay, all the other Americans are gone. We can win. You know, like if you guys stay.
Oh no.
I was like, wait, what? And then it got to the point where it's only 4 countries that were open. So they're like showing me this graph of all the other countries in the world that are not open to Russia, and then the 4 little countries that are. And he's like, surely you'll be able to get out of these 4. He's like drawing. I'm like, oh, this guy is sick. Like,
oh, wow.
About my safety, my livelihood. He's just worried about, you know, winning these games. Then the final straw for me was like, clearly the agent didn't go before me and say, look, she's going to come to this meeting, have her release paper, have her ticket to get out of here. He clearly, because I'm in the meeting having to say all this stuff on my own behalf. But then the general manager goes, surely if all these other 3 countries shut down, surely you'll be able to get out of Kazakhstan because our coach, he's from Kazakhstan. Well, I'm like, he's not like, he's not a government official. Like, what? Yeah. No. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So it was so bad. I got out of that meeting and then they were trying to basically extort me to stay. They were like, well, we're going to pay you. They've been paying me at this Russian bank. And they were like, well, we'll pay you your money that we owe you, but it's going to go to this bank. How will you get your money? And I didn't know exactly what they were meaning until the next day when I had got my own ticket. Like my sister was on the phone with American Express. She got me a ticket out of there that was like 4 times the amount of what it would be. I had to go through Dubai to then come back because no one was letting Russian planes fly directly into their country besides 4 countries. And then, so she got me a ticket out of there. And then they didn't pay for that. They were like, well, this is your decision. Like, it's not that bad here. We're going to continue to play. Like, this is what you want to do. We're not going to release you. And we're only going to give you 1 more payment. Like, even though this is not your fault. They're basically saying it kind of is because you're deciding to leave. Like,
yeah, because you want to leave.
Yeah. I'm like, everybody else is going. It's a war. It's not like I'm saying like, oh, you know.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was so crazy. So all of that happened, and the agent he was just very nonchalant, very like, oh, okay, I'll figure things out. You know, I'm glad you're safe. And my main mission was to get you out of there. And I'm like, but you didn't. Like, I had to do that,
Yeah.
So I was like, this is my time to jump from this person to another agency, because
Sure.
the sense of urgency was just not there. Luckily, I had my family back home and people who loved me and like was able to come through for me in the clutch. But it was like, wow, this is not how you should handle people.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ani.
No, I was just saying, how did it feel? I mean, that's nuts. How did you feel just when you got back, when you came back? I mean, thankfully you were able to.
I was like, thank God bless America. It was just like, yeah, it was crazy, because even when I left there, so when I left, usually I always have an extra bag because I have a lot of stuff. I take like seasonings and stuff to just get me through the season that they don't have in other countries. And so usually when I was leaving Russia every time, because I left like 3 times to go and come back, and I would like check my bags in, but they would keep them at the desk, and I would have to go pay for the extra bag and then come back, show them the receipt, and then they would take them on the plane. Well, this time, same thing. I checked my bag in. I went to the other desk to pay for it. I'm bringing the receipt back. I don't see my bags. And I'm like, they're like, can you step to the side for a second? And I'm like, okay, but like, where are my bags?
Yeah.
Some guy was in the back room with my bags. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know if he was taking things out, going through it extra, putting things in. So I'm like, wait, where? Like, why did you take my bags? I'm like asking questions, and like they don't know, but they were just speaking English to me. They were like, oh no, stay there, like relax, it's okay, everybody does this. And I'm like, no, I seen all these people in this line. You guys didn't take their bags back there. He brings my bag back and puts, it's okay, and just pushes it onto the plane.
Wow.
Like, oh no. So as soon as I got to Dubai and they gave me my bag back, I like went through everything to make sure like they didn't take anything or put anything in there, and they didn't. But that was very, very strange. So I can't imagine other people who had bags or whatever situation might have been, and they could have, they could have done anything with my bag back there.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, and that makes me think of the Britney situation, though.
Exactly.
Like, I know hers was a little supposedly in her carry-on and stuff like that, but to have your belongings go, missing, and I'm not saying you didn't have anything, whatever, but I'm just saying, like, you very well could have had something put in your suitcase in those moments that it was missing. And you could have got to Dubai or somewhere else and they flag you and you have no idea, where whatever miscellaneous item came from. So that's kind of scary. It's kind of weird.
It's very scary.
So, Chloe, were you more like scared, angry, or were you just like, I want to get home? Or like, what were your kind of thoughts as this is unfolding, and then you don't really know exactly when you're going to leave, or like when exactly you're going to get home? What are your thoughts at that time? Like, you just thinking like anger, or you're just a little more scared, or you're just trying to keep cool because you want to get home?
Yeah, I was pretty chill about it. I was thinking about going off in that situation with the bags because that was not cool at all. But my thing was more getting home, getting to safety. And then also too, like you said, Chelsea, I was thinking the same about Brittany. Like, they could have easily did something to her bag, So it was just a lot of different emotions, but I was just really, really happy to get home. I was a little bit nervous because 2 days before there were some girls who flew from Moscow straight to Canada, or they were trying to fly from Moscow to Canada. And the girl, she was telling us that in the air, they rerouted them and they cut the Wi-Fi. So when she landed again, she was back in Moscow. She's thinking,
wow.
Yeah. And she was like, what is going on? So when she told us that, and this is 2 days prior to us leaving, I'm like, oh man, I hope, nothing goes like that. I just wanted to have a smooth flight. So that kind of stuff was on my mind. And then there was only 4 countries that were still allowed. I'm like, well, what if one of those countries says no?
Right.
Like, so
right.
it was
and changes their mind.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
So Chloe, when you look back at it, how were the people of Moscow? Not so much your basketball players, but just maybe people, your fans, or people around town when you get something to eat. Like, were they tense? Were they not telling like the athletes or the American athlete what was going on, or did you get any sense that they thought something was going on, even though you didn't necessarily know there was going to be an invasion or a war breakout? Like, what was the general feel of people around Siberia? Like, were they involved? Like, hey, I don't know what's going on here. What sense did you get?
Well, the people there are the country is pretty tense. Okay, like when I first arrived, they're kind of cold and like. If you get to know them, they're really good people. They love you. They're loyal. But until you get to know them, I mean, they will bump you in the street and keep it moving. Kind of like a New York type, but
yeah.
And so that kind of remained. It wasn't like they acted any differently. And another thing they were telling me was that they had been talking about this war for years, like, we're going to invade, we might not. And they said nothing's ever happened. So their attitude towards it was like, this is going to pass. Like, they're not going to, we've been doing this for years and they've never done anything. And then, so when they did do something, they were shocked, but it wasn't like, oh, we're in grave danger. It was kind of like, oh, okay, like this will blow over soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What kind of perspectives does this give you now, Chloe, being abroad? That was your first season, and you growing up in Southern California, and obviously being in North Carolina for a little while as well, and being a Southern California girl. What kind of, when you got home, what kind of perspective did it give you that despite our problems, we don't live with like threats of bombs, or like you don't have a bomb shelter in your house in the IE? Like, what new perspective do you have of like, first being the experience of and being a pro player, but also being back home with your family and your loved ones?
Yeah, so as a pro player, Russia, and then last year I played in Israel, and I think those are two of the best leagues in the world as far as they have talent and competition from like the American WNBA players and stuff that I've played in. And just that this is what I want to do. I've always wanted to play in the WNBA. So being on that stage and playing there, just not taking like for granted how precious life is, like you said, we don't live in danger. We don't have to worry about somebody coming here for war. Like, we go to other places to fight. And a lot of people don't have that kind of safety. And so it was just very eye-opening and made me realize that whatever it is that I want to do in life, like, I need to go after it, because it's not promised that I'm going to have a whole season to do it, or, like, you never really know when your last game is going to be your last game. Thankfully, it's not like I'm hurt, so I can go somewhere else and play, but also, like, you just never know. And so that's really what I'm putting all my effort towards now, like in my off season, is just like really, really working hard and towards that goal. And then also just, I know I want to play somewhere warm. I mean, Russia was freezing.
Well, that's an old saying, like, oh, you're headed to Siberia. Like, we've been saying that for, I don't even know where Siberia is, but I do say that, like, boy, you're going to Siberia. Like, it's you're just way out. That's what people say as a really kind of like a joke.
No, it's no joke. So yeah. But
so Chloe, just real quick though, do you ever see, like, how do you see the Russian league resuming after this? Like, not necessarily for this season, but I'm curious to know, do you think, like, would you ever go back next year? Do you think the Russian league will, go back to the regularly scheduled program? A lot of high profile WNBA players play in that league. They make the most money that you can probably make in any country. I don't foresee, prayerfully, I'm hoping that Brittany Griner gets out of there, and I can't imagine her going back to play after such an experience. But what do you think about other players, Epiphany Prince and, the players that you came across on these other teams? And could you see yourself as well, maybe going back there in the future?
I don't think a lot of players would go back for a while, especially because like FIBA and the Euro Cup, Euro League, they're banning them from their competition for playing with them. Yeah. And so for a while, it's going to be tense like that. I think there'll only be Russian players playing in the Russian league for a while until they can figure this thing out. As far as myself, I would never go back, and not because the team, like the Russian league, it was very competitive. It was very, very good. It was just very brutal. Like that winter for me was just almost impossible. And I mean, if I was making the kind of money that they were making, I might think about it. But even then, it would be a think. Like, I mean, it was very, very brutal. And then there was another aspect of like, I can't say for sure, but it seemed like there was a lot of betting on these games. And we would play teams. And I mean, like, honestly, the last game we played, they called 7 technicals on our team. And I'm just like, and I can't even tell you what one was for. And like, like regular, foul, take out of bounds, technical. And we're looking like, wait, what? They called a technical on our poor coach. He's never cursed. Like, he is just the sweetest guy. And they called a technical on him. And then they said, and if the bench says anything, if they get up, we're going to throw, you got to give him a technical and throw you out the game. And we're like, what? So we're scoring and we're just like, but we can't say anything. It was just the craziest stuff. But what happened was we would play against these high profile players. And this is all my opinion, but we would play against these high profile players. And our team, like, we had girls who played in the league and stuff, but they weren't high profile. And so we were competing. We would be beat. Like, we had Course, which was like Epiphany Prince and Natasha Howard. We had them down by 10 at halftime. And I'm sure if there was betting, that was not the point spread. You know,
Okay.
so second half they start getting calls, flagrant one, everybody like it was just outrageous stuff happening like that. But overall, that league was so strong. Like not like the Russian players included, they were huge. Like you know how we make jokes like, "Oh, that girl's 6'9". They were really 6'9", and I'm like,
Yeah,
"Oh my
all of
god!"
it.
Like, and it doesn't look like that when you're watching it on film. So I would come off the screen, and my dad's like, "Baby girl, you have your shot." I'm like, "Yeah, Dad, but she's 6'9". Like she was over there just taking off my head, you know. So it was just a whole different way of like adjusting and stuff because the girls were really good.
Yeah.
What league do you hesitancy of people going back to the Russian league, like you said, and the FIBA put some sanctions on them? What league overseas do you think will kind of come up because of all this?
I think the Turkish leagues. I'm not really too well versed on like which leagues are already really good, but I think in China or Korea, I'm not sure which Korea they go to, North or South Korea, but I think those leagues will really start to make a push, and those players will start to go over to those leagues too, because I don't see Russia being that kind of league anymore for at least 3 to 5 years, especially with just that threat of danger now. I don't think people are going to go back. And then with them having Brittany Griner, like we played that team. We played that team on February 20th. She was not in that game. And no one said, "Oh, Brittany,
anything."
We didn't know about that till weeks later. And I'm just like,
wow,
crazy.
Yeah.
Like that whole situation, and then when my bags happened, I'm like, dang, they could have put something in her bag, poor girl. And then in those countries, they're very rigid, you know, like her being a lesbian is forbidden over there. I just hope and pray that they're not doing anything crazy to her while she's being detained and stuff, but I just really don't feel that confident, like, oh, you know, they're treating her how they're supposed to be. Like, that situation makes me really, really uneasy. And like, my heart really goes out to her. I don't even know her personally, but it's just not a good situation. I can't imagine what real prison is like in Russia versus the experience that I had already, you know? So that's
the last report that I had a couple of days ago that I heard was that she is okay. Like, and that's such a like broad, like very general like statement, but they said, you know, they have been in contact with her family, you know, obviously her team and her agents and, you know, lawyers representation, and she's okay. That's like the most that I've heard. So just a scary situation. But Ani, too, just to piggyback a little bit off of what you said, you know, the other league that usually pays similar to Russia is China. And the last 2 seasons, China hasn't had imports. So a lot of people have been waiting for it. They've had imports on the men's side. My friend Jamal Franklin, who's a San Diego State alum, he's playing in China right now. But on the women's side, the last 2 seasons, they haven't had women imports. So I think if that were to open up next year, I think a lot of the more high profile WNBA players will end up in China because that's similar pay scale. You know, it's a short season. It's only 4 months, but you know, they can pay you $500,000 in China. They can pay you $250,000 in China, you know, and not many leagues have the ability to do that. Chloe mentioned the Turkish league a little bit. The Turkish league has money, but not all the teams. And the Turkish league has, you know, a reputation for, hey, we'll sign you for this amount of money, but are you really going to get it? You know, if it's not like Finner.
Well, those type of situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, if it's not like Finner or Gala, the 2 top, you know, teams would have the biggest budgets. They have probably the most WNBA players at the moment playing for them. But some of those smaller teams in China, you think the market is decent, but, you know, you lose a couple games and are we going to make it to the playoffs? Do we want to pay? You know, those kind of questions kind of come up. So just in my opinion, I think that you might see a little more disbursement of, you know, players just playing in different places. Because usually in just Italy or Spain or France, there's always 1 to 2 to 3 teams that have a budget that can pay nicely. Like even in Israel, like I'm in Israel, I've been here for a long time. You know, we have a Euro Cup team in Ramleh, and they've brought high profile, you know, WNBA all-star type players, and they have the ability to pay them. So I think every country is kind of in that similar situation. I think players might object to go overseas in general more. But I just think that the ones that opt to come are going to definitely experience maybe a pay cut from some sort of not, you know, what they're used to being paid, especially if they play in Russia. And other than that, it'll just kind of be interesting to see the landscape of women's basketball overseas in the future, especially now with leagues like Athletes Unlimited. Chloe, I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but you know, that league that, you know, it's only 6 weeks, but they have some WNBA players. It's, you know, in the United States. It was in Vegas about a month ago. Like those leagues are kind of starting to pop up, and I think that might deter people from wanting to go overseas in general. And we hear about Brittany, which is the biggest deterrent of all. Like nobody ever wants to be in that situation. And so I think we're going to see the landscape change. So that was just a comment I wanted to make.
Yeah. Chloe, switching gears a little bit. Obviously, you're back home. Tell us what's next for you. Like you said, your goal is to keep playing. You want to get a good shot at the WNBA. But what are you going to be up to this summer? I know you help younger players. You like to give back and help young girls or young boys learn the game. So what are you up to now that you're back home?
Yeah, so outside of training, like you said, and getting ready for this next season coming up, so right now I'm in the process of signing contracts for a school district. I'm looking at 3 different schools. They're high schools. And I have a mentorship called the Scholar Club. And what they do is they give me about 40 students. And so once a week, I meet with these students in groups of 10, and we just talk about their class, like their attendance, behavior, and their and their grades, and then just life. I'm like a big sister to them. And so I incentivize them, you know, to keep doing like positive things and making good choices and like having good results in school. And then I'm going to do that in 3 different schools. And then I'll be training kids like crazy this summer. And just all in the gym. And then I have a team that I'm going to be coaching. 6th grade team. It's called OC Rhythm. And
That's cool. So what is your social media so people can keep track of what you're doing, or if you have a somewhere that they can send you so keep up to date? We have a lot of SoCal listeners if they want to reach out to you and see what you're up to.
C Wells, so CWELLS BTR, and BTR stands for Beyond the Rim. And that's my IG. And that's the only thing I'm really on. I have Snap and everything else, but I'm on Instagram.
Sure. Instagram, okay.
Nice.
It's more lighthearted. Obviously, it's been we appreciate you sharing your experience, but on a lower lighthearted situation on the boys' side, what do you think about your Blue Devils? You know, they're number 2 seed. What do you think about Duke now you're back home?
Ooh, I think the face says it all, Ronnie. Look at the face.
Right. Okay, so I don't watch that much basketball. Let's start there. And the basketball that I have watched this year with Duke, I watched them play 1 game. This is just 1 game.
Yeah,
they lost to what did they just lose to?
Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
ACC tournament. Yeah, the championship.
Okay, no. Who was the game before that? Who did they lose to?
Did they lose to North Carolina? You're saying maybe Coach K's last game?
Yeah, Coach K's farewell. They lost to North Carolina in Cameron. Ooh, it could have been Miami too.
Ooh.
But who did they play the first game in the ACC
tournament? And
I can't remember, but they won because they made it to
I know, but they barely won. Whoever they played, that's what I saw actually. I didn't see
Okay, let me look it up really quick so we can be correct. Hold
but
on,
what did you while she's looking at up, what did you think of them? I mean, they got
yeah. So here's what I thought. I'm not gonna be biased because I'm a Dookie, but they have the best players. Like I think they have really good, like talented players.
Sure.
I don't know if Coach K is a little tired. I don't know what's happening, but they're running up and down and like doing fast breaks, just like 1-on-1 and throwing the ball down low versus like having sets. You know, like some higher level, like pin down screen, handoff, backdoor. And I said, if they play against a team that's equally athletic and like can play and has some continuity and some sets, they'll lose.
Right.
Yeah. And then they played Virginia Tech. And I was like, I tried to tell you guys. So I want them to win, of course, because I'm an alum there, but I just don't see it for them this year.
Got you.
Yeah. And I hate to say that because Mark Williams, Elizabeth Williams and I played together. We played together at Boo. Then we played together at Duke. And so our brother's there. Of course I want them to win. I don't see it. Honestly, I don't see it.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
we appreciate the hard take. We gotta have you back on. We're gonna have to have you come back on and talk about some of this stuff. Yeah, 'cause you've been
100%.
straight up tape. Yeah, you just.
All right, well, I gotta watch some more then. I gotta start watching basketball more because I'm outside. I'm in Southern California. It's nice out here. I don't know where you guys are. I'm at the beach. Okay.
Yeah, you want to get out. You want to get out. So we appreciate your insight and your honest take, and we thank you for taking the time to get on with us to talk about your Russian experience and let people know what you're up to. So we thank you and appreciate you coming on.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Chloe.
Okay, take care, Chloe.
All righty. Bye-bye.
So yeah, I mean, she has a good one-liners, and it's, I mean, just what she said about like her bag and how far she is, 4.5 hours. Like I could get to Miami in 4 hours from LA. Like how big Russia is, you know. That's why I wanted to like, where's she at in Moscow? How cold it is. I can't deal with that cold, man.
I wouldn't be able to function. Like it is kind of cold in Israel right now, colder than it's ever been in my 9 years of being here. Usually kind of mid-February, I'm on the beach. I'm hanging out. It's usually beach weather, but right now it's been like 55 still in mid, March. So I am barely hanging on here. You know, Ronnie, I'm from Vegas. Like it gets a little cold there, but no, I like it hot. I'd rather be hot than cold in that. So no, couldn't do it.
Yeah. And like you said, I guess the media reports that we hear about people not knowing what's going on outside of the team is from her take, it's like right dead on of what we've heard. Like they don't really know what's going on in the rest of the country, or maybe the citizens are a little oblivious. I think maybe the citizens don't want to share with the outsiders. That's what I'm kind of taking a little bit out of that. Like, this is our shit. Like, this is Russia's shit. Like, we run this shit. We ain't just gonna tell anybody what's going on. Like, that's what I kind of get at. It's like a hood, like its own hood. You know what I mean?
And I think that's true, at least for the management. But the players usually form relationships with those girls, and they'll be a little bit more honest. Like, okay, Chelsea, like, I don't know. Like you might need to leave. But it's just tough. Like, it's crazy. I've never been in a situation like that, so I can only speak from thankfully having positive experiences, but I can't even imagine.
Yeah. And that she gave us great insight. I appreciate her coming on. Let's switch gears again, switch back to the high school realm. We're talking about high school teams. Ani, we mentioned, Centennial and Sierra Canyon, and Centennial won the state title, and they had one of the best public teams in the country. But we're going to now talk to Coach David Peavy. He's going to be a guest on now about the best high school public team in the country. Let's bring him in now. Coach Peavy, are you there? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate you jumping on. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Just give us your thoughts about being obviously in a big state like Texas, where basketball's now, right at the top of the food chain across the country, and being the best team for 4 straight years.
Man, there's really, really good basketball in Texas right now, and to be doing what we're doing is special. I know it is, but I say this over and over, and I truly believe it. A lot of things have to be happening the way they're happening for us to be doing what we're doing.
Sure.
I've got a great staff, but we've got some unbelievable young men. These kids, one, they're talented. We've got good size. We're athletic, but they're great people, and they come from great families. And then our administration in our community is so supportive that it makes things a little bit easier for us to do what we're doing.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And obviously, there's a lot going on. You guys have you're one of the best teams in the country, and people want to follow you. Tell us how happy you are, proud of you guys to put aside any distractions, any social media, and get it done on the court. Talk about those players and keeping focus.
Man, that's one of the things I'm most proud about this year. It was a rough year. It was a really, really rough year. The things that we went through as a program, especially with Anthony, but we all felt it. These guys are so close, and they are a true family. We are a true family. That it affected everybody, and for them to stay locked in the way that they have, it is special. That makes it more special because there were a lot of distractions. There were plenty of opportunities for us to falter and to not do what we've done. So that's one thing, man, I'm really proud of. It was draining. It's exhausting, but these guys stayed the course and they stayed locked in.
Yeah, for Dave, with AB, everything that he was going through, you know, and to come into the state championship game and to win MVP, you know, it's taken a lot of resiliency from him this year. You know, just a lot had to go through, but then when it was ready for him to play, he played, and just to come in at the end and get MVP. Just talk about, you know, just him. Like everyone talks about how talented he is, but you know, this takes a lot of mental toughness, you know, to go through.
A lot. And I say this, man, he handled this whole situation so much better than me and his mom. You know, where I mean, it wore on us so much and the family so much, but he's the one that really just kept us all together. Like, and he taught us a whole lot. And no matter what, he found ways to continue to get better. You know, he helped us as a program get better. I mean, that's a heck of a dude to have on the scout team.
Right.
You know,
right.
To have to go against a McDonald's All-American, and how hard he worked every day, knowing that he was not going to play, was crazy.
Yeah.
You know, he rarely felt sorry for himself. You know, I'm not going to say he never did, but he rarely felt sorry for himself. And usually it never happened until he got home, you know, so he never showed it. He always showed up every day to practice, and he worked, he grind. And we all appreciate everything that he had to go through and the way he did it with grace. It's going to make him, it has made him a better person and for sure a better player.
Coach, talk a little bit about, and you might have been asked this a lot of times, we're following the games out in California because we have vested interest because you beat California's two best teams. So you're in the semifinal against Atascocita. You guys are down 20 points, 30-10. Like, how does in a state championship game, semifinal game in against that talent level, this good of teams, like, did you ever imagine your team could hold another team to basically 2 points each quarter and 2 points for half of the second quarter? So 6 points in 20 minutes of a 32-minute game. Yeah, just go through that. And what did you say to them if you called a timeout, and then what you say to them at halftime?
Okay. I'll answer your questions.
Yeah, I got a lot
out of order.
Yeah. Okay.
I had two assistant coaches.
Yeah.
Not yelling at me, but like, Coach, call a timeout. Coach, call a timeout.
Yeah.
I said no. What I was looking at was there was a couple different things. One, they were on a high. They were on fire.
Okay.
And I didn't want to call a timeout and let them get in their huddle and go crazy and feed off of their energy. I didn't want to call a timeout and get my guys in our huddle and feed off of negative energy. And I saw those guys using a lot of energy on the court. I didn't want to give them a break. Okay. Part of our game plan against most teams was to wear teams down. And I felt like, okay, they're wearing down. They're dying. Those guys, they were beating us. They were making shots, but they were starting to die. And I knew we had more. So we were making mistakes. Now they were making shots. So I can't take anything away from them. But we expected them to make shots. That's what they do. Right. But our game plan was to make them hit contested shots. We couldn't get back cut. Well, we had got back cut 3 times in that first half for layups. And we got back cut a couple other times where we had to help, which left wide open 3-point shooters. So our deal was do not get back cut. We got to stay up under them, use our length, make them shoot contested shots, and we'll be fine, and we'll wear them down. So once we made a little run right before halftime, and we were down 13 at half. And, you know, yelling and screaming at that point would not do anything good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got in the locker room, and I just said, all right, I hate that we do this to ourselves. You know, we've been here before. We've been down at the state tournament. We've been down before. But I hate that we have to do this to ourselves, but we did. Now, calm down. We're fine. Now let's get back to what the game plan was. And then one of our seniors, Davion Sykes, let me back up a little bit. To get where we were at half, we had to go offense defense.
Right.
Because we had a couple kids. Ron Holland picked up 2 fouls. And I think that, and then we had some guys that couldn't stay in front of them. While their guys were fresh, our bigger kids couldn't stay in front of their guards. So we started going offense defense and to save Ron and to guard these dudes.
Yeah.
And then once we wore them down, we got to put our length back on the court, and they were able to stay in front of them. So coming out of halftime, Davion Sykes said, "Hey, coach," I mean, we're walking out. He says, "Hey, coach, can we keep doing it?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Offense, defense. Can we just keep going offense, defense?" And I looked at my assistant coaches who make all the subs, by the way. I don't make subs.
Okay.
I looked at them. I said, "Hey, we might want to look at that." And we walked out, and for the rest of the whole second half, we just went offense, defense, and it kept our guys fresh, and then it kept them off balance because we had little guys out there putting a lot of pressure. Then we put size out there that it just keeps you off balance a little bit. And then once we got the momentum, it was hard. It was hard on them.
Coach, just to piggyback on a little bit of what you said, like your team's had a lot of contributors. Like I want to hear you talk about a few of maybe the unsung guys, Eric Demings, players that you have that, have come up big for you in some of these games.
I mean, Eric at one point this year, Eric was the hottest guy in the country.
Yeah.
He was the one, I'm sure y'all know, he was the one that hit the last second shot against Montverde.
Yeah.
But in that stretch, he shot the ball so well. Eric is a bucket. Eric's a bucket.
Yeah.
But Eric had to take some different roles this year with CJ Ford getting hurt, with AB being ineligible. Eric had to become more of a point guard,
right? Which
he has a size of a point guard, but Eric is really a 2 in a point guard's body. So he struggled. He struggled a lot, but it's a blessing, Eric had to learn how to be more of a point. And while Evan Phelps has taken off, he's going to be a Division I player because of CJ Ford getting hurt and AB going through what he had to go through.
Sure.
And then Evan really grew up this year. We had guys come off the bench who could really defend, like Rasan Collier. And it's funny, man, how much Rasan contributed at the state tournament. 2 weeks ago, Rasan was in the transfer portal. We talk about, like, stay the course. And I always want what's best for you. And if it means you got to go somewhere else and be more successful somewhere else, cool. I support you, but be where your feet are. Your feet are right here. Be where your feet are and make it work for you. And Rasan really stepped up for us. Caleb Jones became a star for us. I mean, and people still probably don't know his name, but Caleb Jones, his defense and the intensity and what he brings to the floor just took our whole level up. And because of that, Caleb's going to have a chance to get his school paid for here pretty soon. So we got a bunch of guys that came off the bench, really contributed, and then they rose the level of our starters' energy. Once they got us going, then, like I said, once we got the momentum, it was tough. It was tough.
You talk about Evan Phelps. That was one player that just seeing him gradually get better through just throughout his time there, like in December, and then seeing him in January, he just gets better, and you're like, oh damn, I think he's starting to figure out. And then you saw it in the state tournament. It was just like, okay, I think Evan's like starting to arrive. Right. Obviously, kind of a different player than his brother. But Zurich, but like around the same time, it started to kind of click for Zurich too. Just talk about that, like
exactly. When Zurich first came to us as a junior, and people saw him early, I had so many people. I'm not sold on him. I said, man, he's gonna be really good. He's gonna be really good. And I said the same thing about Evan. Evan came off of a huge injury last year. He broke his leg. He still had issues with it throughout the year where, it's been gradual, but I saw it in practice. I would see it. And then, he still was unsure. He didn't have the confidence in his leg. He didn't have confidence in his shot. Didn't have confidence in his handle. But we saw it. We just kept on telling, bro, you got a chance to be special. Got a chance to be special. And at the state tournament, man, when I knew, okay, Evan is going to blow up this summer and next year, he was sitting on defense and he looked over at the bench while he's sitting in his stance and he said, Coach, he tired. And he smiled. I've never seen this dude smile in the middle of the game. He smiled. His man passed the ball. Evan dropped back in the help and then switched, got a steal, and laid it up to give us our first lead. And I was like, okay, we just won. When he did that, I just said, okay, we just won. And just the energy he brought. Evan Phelps is going to be special. I'm saying it right now for the world to hear. Evan Phelps is going to be special.
So 4 for 4. That's just been the thing. You created a dynasty at Duncanville. You helped create it. What's your motivation? Like, you won 4. What's the motivation to go for 5? Like, how do you just motivate yourself? Like, after you win so many state titles, complacency can happen. But like, how do you motivate yourself for next year?
I got different kids, man, and they got different goals. It's the next group. It's the next guy. Now it's I'm real big on helping each individual reach their goals while we reach our collective goal as a team. And it works for us. If it was just about, hey man, let me use you to win a state championship, this wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. So now it's finding a way for Ron to become a McDonald's All-American, finding a way for Cam Barnes to be who we know Cam Barnes can be, finding a way for Ashton to continue to grow and be, they are. First, I want to know what your goals are. What are your goals? And then let me find ways to help you achieve your goals while we achieve our goals. So that's my motivation is the next one, so I can't wait till we have our individual meetings, so we can now that you've done what you've done, now what are your goals now? This is what they were before. Are we on track? Are we not? Okay, well then let's tweak it a little bit and figure out, okay, how do we get back on track, or do we need to go a different route? Do we need to change up a goal or whatever it is? But that's my motivation, man. And we're of course always want to win. I'm at Duncanville, Ani. You know what the expectations are.
Yeah, I know.
We don't celebrate anything, but okay, the first time we can celebrate is when we make it to state. If we win at regionals, we get to cut those nets down, and that's about it. I mean, they know we're not throwing a party. We're not doing any of that. Now, once we win a state championship, it's on. It's
on. I know.
But I mean, we don't, and I don't want to sound arrogant about it because it's different. Duncanville, the expectations are different. Our community's different. I have never seen a district championship ball in our gym. We don't like. Yeah. My assistant AD, she came from the district meeting and she took a picture of the district championship ball in her passenger seat with the seatbelt on it. Said, "Coach, I got your ball." Where are you putting that? We don't get to do that. You know, it's just I don't know. Yeah. It's just different.
Coach, you coming from California, and I know your expectations level, and I know the program's level for you guys have won it 6 times with Coach Phil McNeely before you as well. But I'm watching Ashton, and I've known him since middle school, and I'm saying, and I heard he's going to Duncanville. I'm saying this boy is not going to be able to play there. You don't have the physical conditioning, and he has some skill, but he's just not going to. I know how you guys want to practice and how hard you want to play. It obviously showed if you're holding a regionally ranked and state semifinalist to 4 points in the season. I'm like, he's not going to be ready for that. So talk a little bit about his development and how proud are you that he actually made a contribution and that he figured it out.
I mean, one, he's just not contributing. Ashton's one of the dudes. You know, he's one of the dudes. I'm real proud of Ashton. One, he was so scared. He was so scared coming in the door. And I guess he had seen stuff on Facebook and Twitter and all that on social media about our workouts and how hard we go. And, you know, he talked so much early about how much running we do. And I'm like, Ash, you're going to be fine. You're an athlete. Yeah, it's going to hurt. Being an athlete hurts, but you're going to be okay. There was a lot I learned from the kid before coming here. He had never run on a track before. That was mind-boggling. He told me they never ran at all. So I told him early on, man, you got a lot of baby fat on you that you're going to have to get rid of, but don't worry. It's not like you're going to have to do anything extra. All you're going to have to do is what we do. And he took off 20 pounds like within the first couple of weeks. Yeah. And then gradually, I think he's taking like 30 down. Now we're going to transform his body with more muscle. He's going to get more explosive. Defensively, he became somebody different. You know, he really proved that he can guard on the perimeter, which is going to make him really valuable at 6'7", 6'8", being able to switch ball screens and guards on the perimeter. He's got to get tougher around the rim. He's got to rebound better, but that's the next move. Once we put more strength on him, he'll have more confidence on throwing his body around and getting rebounds. But the kid can play. He's got a chance. He's got a chance, and he's starting to believe it.
That's great. That's great. Coach, we want to appreciate your time. Before we let you go, we want to switch gears just a little bit. You know, obviously, what's going on with this tournament? What do you think about this tournament? Have you looked at the brackets a little bit? You know, you have any favorites? What's your team? What's going to happen, you think, in this tournament?
Have I looked at the brackets? No. I know I will be in San Diego on Friday, flying out Friday morning. Yeah. And my team is TCU. You know, I'll be following TCU. Of course, I'll be following. I follow players, man. I follow players and coaches. I follow coaches. If I've got a relationship or if I value or appreciate their coaching, I try to follow them a little bit and watch them as much as I can. But I've got a lot of friends out there who are in the tournament. I'm excited about Steve Lutz making it with Corpus, you know, in his first year. You know, I was hoping that Brett Tanner made it over at Abilene Christian. But man, I think Coach Sampson does an unbelievable job over at U of H. Yeah. You know, of course, I've got a good relationship with Coach Beard over at Texas. But of course, the Texas teams, and then you know, getting to watch the teams that have been recruiting AB. You know, so I'll be watching Gonzaga and Arkansas and you know, and then but other than that, I have not looked at the bracket at all. I just know that TCU plays Friday night at 7, so I'll be in there for that, and I'll get to be.
Yeah, if they get that win, they're going to get Arizona in the second round, and that'll be a game that everybody will want to watch.
Yeah. So you know they're going to shock the world, man. They're going to shock the world. And,
there you go.
You know,
there you go.
I'm going to spend all my money following them, all the way to the national championship.
Wow. Appreciate it. Yeah, that'll be something. So we appreciate you, Coach, coming on. Congratulations again on winning the state tournament, and thank you for taking your time.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
All right.
Take care. Thanks,
Coach.
Yep.
See y'all later.
And He was very confident in his group. Ani, as you already know, once Demings hit that 3 against Montverde, it looked like, okay, this team's probably not gonna lose. What did you take, Ani, when you obviously that was back at Hoop Hall, and then they dropped to Richardson, and you're like, whoa, but Richardson's good. Then Richardson loses in the quarterfinals in the region, so they don't get a chance to rematch. But then now they're down 20 points in the first half, and you're thinking, what were you thinking? I'm like, okay, are they just like they're gonna figure it out? Did you see what his coach saw, that they were gonna get tired, or did you see something different?
When they're up by 20, it was interesting. I thought maybe this could get really tricky because they haven't been down 20 before during the season. So that was my question. Now, when I saw Atascocita kind of took their foot off the pedal, because when Duncanville would make a mistake or they'll miss a shot or live ball turnover, they were getting down. They're getting open threes, even though they're making contested threes, but they're in the rhythm. And when it got to 20, even though I think Duncanville made a shot to get to like 18, that's when they really slowed it down. When we talk about the second half of the second quarter, and at that point, and especially when Peavy made the offense defense subs, putting in the smaller guys out there to really like stop them from like holding the ball. Yeah. That's when I was like, oh yeah, this Duncanville's coming back. I thought when the Atascocita put their foot off the pedal, I thought that's when it got rough. And like I said, Martinez had a great game plan, spacing them out, really like exploiting just the mismatches, especially when they switch with the bigs, kind of guarding the guards. But when they stopped being aggressive, I thought they kind of played not to lose at a point, and then Duncanville just kept coming and coming and coming, and that's when it got.
And the championship game, they kind of rolled, as you mentioned early in the show. They just kind of went through McKinney. In McKinney's obviously a good team, but they had no problems. And 5A Beaumont United repeated.
Oh man,
they have a great team, and a lot happened there. Obviously, they beat they got through Kimbo on a rematch of last year's final. Ontario Morris, obviously the great McDonald's All-American, they lost, but they had a lot of distractions, Ani. You got, it's like you hear about what happened, and let me ask you this. So you're there at the stadium. Now the insiders, other scouts, people, they know who got in trouble, who had the gun that went off. But like, do people realize, okay, that kid is not in the lineup? It's had to be him. Or they're like, was everybody already talking about what happened?
So the night before I left to go to San Antonio, I get a call at like 10 p.m. about it and whose gun it was and all that. Yeah. So then I check on Twitter because Texas Twitter can be kind of wild, and everybody's talking about it. So like by the morning, you kind of knew some things. Obviously, like I wasn't talking to anybody at the Kimball staff because they're trying to get this situation. And trying to figure it out and figure out the game was going to be played. At some point, people were talking about the game may not be played. So all that going on, people knew who it was and that he 99% sure wasn't going to play. But it hurt. It hurt that he didn't play. He's arguably like the second best contributor on the team to Arterio. And, you're missing a shot blocker, an athletic kid that just plays hard and can finish around the rim and just gives you just everything he has, every possession. That hurts. But, Kimball was in position. They were up 8 with 3 minutes left in the fourth. Arterio Morris, I think he had like 9 or maybe it was 13 points in the first 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. And you didn't really get a touch at for the rest of the game. So, Kimball, without the kid was really is very talented. McDonald's All-American and Arterio. You got Clemson signee and Chauncey Gibson. They got some 223s that are really good with the Cannon Wickware and T-John Brown. And we thought they had Beaumont on the ropes. And at one point, I think it was 14-2 to start out the game. So just, honestly, Kimball should have won, but Beaumont United, Coach Green does a hell of a job with his boys. And Terrence Arsenault, Wesley Yates, and Portier, those guys, they've been there before. They play like they've been there before, and they knew how to finish the game.
Yeah, Terrence Arsenault, obviously, last year, led them to an undefeated season against Kimball. They hit the game-tying shot and the game-winning shot. So it's very interesting that they came back and won. They had a great season. They didn't go undefeated again, but
Right.
I see that everybody knows of Beaumont now. Everybody knows, like Kendrick Perkins from Beaumont Ozen. The school got united, right? 2 schools closed, so he's on. But people don't really know like Beaumont's east near Louisiana. So I think people, more and more national people, are starting to understand where they're from. So that's great. I'm glad that something good came out of that. And yeah, you feel bad for the young lady who was a student. She was a student, right, Ani? And
Correct.
a bullet hits her leg. Like, that's the chances of that happening. Or, and then people jump on. They're like, oh, then they try to make it like, oh, it's because an open carry state, and that wouldn't happen here. That doesn't happen in California. What? Like, it's just a random bad incident. Like, it's just something you don't want to happen anywhere. Like, it has nothing to do with any law or anything political. It's just a bad choice and a bad decision. And thank God she's not seriously hurt. And maybe people are going to move on. But yeah, that's not a good situation. But it's a great situation for those 2 teams. Obviously, Coach Peavy mentioned TCU, so that's the only region we didn't talk about, guys, much. So let's just finish this out. We appreciate everybody staying on. We've been on almost for 2 hours, so we thank everybody. We thank our guests. But let's talk about the South. We kind of talked about the other 3 regions. TCU first round against Seton Hall. Then they're going to get Arizona down in San Diego on Sunday. The thing that stands out to me, Ani, and we talked about this game on an earlier episode, is Tennessee beating Arizona in Tennessee. One of the weirdest games I've seen in a long time. I talked to Arizona guys about it. So it's very funny that they beat Illinois in Champaign, and the Illinois and Tennessee are in their bracket. We talked a little bit about Michigan not having a chance. There's another Big Ten team, Ohio State and Loyola Chicago, back in the tournament. They had another great season. And then Villanova. You always expect Villanova to be good. You expect them to have a chance at any time. But they're a 2 seed. But some people are saying, they're not as good as past. They're good because Colin Gillespie got the COVID-19 year. So what's your take there, Ani, with that region? And, can anybody challenge the Wildcats?
Yeah, I think Tennessee's really flowing well right now. I have them coming out of the Midwest. Arizona, they're talented, but I do wonder when it gets down to the nitty gritty, and adversity hits, how do they respond? Especially, you talk about if you're in a second round or Sweet 16 situation. I do want to know what happens there. But Tennessee, they're really peaking at the right time. Won SEC tournament, and I have them coming out. And then plus my guy Rob Clark's there, so
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I mean, Tennessee just won the SEC tournament, and they're just playing their best basketball right now in March. And that's really honestly what it's about. It doesn't really matter, how you started the season and the ups and downs. Like, if you can peak and be at your peak when it matters most, I can see them squeezing past Arizona. It wouldn't surprise me, but I think Arizona comes out. So
okay. Yeah. So me, I'm with you guys here. I think it'd be Tennessee versus Arizona rematch. Boy, I talked to Terry. He goes, I just tell him, said Kennedy Chandler. Like, I need Kennedy again. He's like, I want that game again. They felt that they got kind of hosed there, and it's hard to win on the SEC on the road. Then your Arizona team comes in, and they're not going to catch a break, and that's okay. But is there any upset that can happen, or is it probably going to be, those 2 teams? Can any upset happen? Coach Peavy likes TCU. No, I just don't see any upset that makes any sense. That those 2 teams are too talented, I think, as you guys mentioned.
Yeah,
I like Loyola Chicago. I think they make it to the second round, but that's about it.
Yeah. Obviously TCU that has another local connection. Charles O'Bannon Jr. from Bishop Gorman, Chelsea Vegas. Doing a good job, and got some people that reached out to me and said, man, that's going to be exciting. I'm glad they're glad that the game's in San Diego. That it's
close by.
Yeah, it's attainable. They can get there, and so I guess the bottom line is that we're looking like it's going to be Tennessee, Arizona, and then Auburn. You guys are saying something. Just Kansas, Baylor, Kentucky, and then most people think Gonzaga over Duke. So even though we went through we broke this all, that still seems like the top seeds are are breaking through, except for Iowa. Iowa seems to be the wild card there in that Auburn region, and that would be very. I wouldn't mind seeing one team. I think there's going to be one bracket that a 3 to 5 comes out, but I'm just not sure exactly which one right now.
Right.
Fair.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And what I wanted to mention is Coach Peavy got on and talked about his team as we wrap this up. Ani, this is probably already out there now. From when we started, the release of the GEICO bracket. As you're listening to this during the week, it'll already be out. The field has been announced as of when you listen to this. Sunrise comes in at Fab 50 number 1. They're the top seed. Montverde number 3. The team that Duncanville beat is the 3. Link Academy is the 4 in the rankings. They're also the 4th seed. IMG gets the number 2 seed on, even though they have some losses.
Yeah.
They're number 6 in the Fab 50. La Lumiere 7 in the Fab 50. They're also 7th seed. And then number 8, Oak Hill's a 5 seed. I guess they like some of Oak Hill's big wins. They've obviously split with IMG. Then rounding out the 8-field bracket, 2 more teams. Compass Prep is the 6th seed, and then the 8th seed is Prolific Prep. Ani, is that kind of what you expected? Obviously Prolific and Hillcrest added to those 6 teams that we've talked about all season.
Yeah, no, that's sounds about right. I was wondering what those last 2 teams would be. Prolific have a good season. You said, is it Compass or Hillcrest?
It's Compass Prep.
It's Compass, yeah, Compass, and they've had a really good season too. So that's a good field. Yeah, that's about what I thought. Yeah.
And would you think Sunrise is the favorite going in, or do you just think kind of like the tournament is wide open? Obviously, Sunrise
is wide open. I think it's wide open. I mean, Sunrise obviously number 1 seed.
Yeah.
Favorite, but man,
not a big favorite.
Yeah, no. Not a big favorite. It's not like it's not like the Montverde team with like Cade Cunningham and all those guys.
Stacked.
Yeah.
They're not. The teams are not overly stacked. They're beatable. They all could win. I mean, you probably think Prolific would have a tough time against Sunrise. The 3-6 Montverde Compass. They've kind of built like a little rivalry last year. They played with Tai. Tai led them to some. Tai was really good last year for that team. Kind of put them on the map, and obviously Tai is going to have to play good for Kentucky. We're real quick. Let's talk about him. He has to play good. Everybody say, "Oh, Kentucky win. They got the best rebounder." Like that kid has to really step up. What's your take? And do you guys have any 2 or 3 breakout players from the tournament, or any player that you think is necessary that has to play good?
Definitely Ty Washington has to be. He has to come up and play. Obviously, saw Veer Wheeler. The garbage is going to be solid. He's going to do what he does. But when Ty is playing to his capabilities, I think he's really, really tough. Trying to think. I really like the kid from Boise State, Emmanuel Okot. Obviously, I'm not saying Boise State makes a deep run, but like a 6'8" point forward that kind of can just, if he's more assertive, he can really impact the game in different ways. Man, like even the TCU Mike Miles, he's one of those guys that people talk about. Does he make it to does he declare for the draft? Does he get drafted in NBA? He's one of those fringe guys for TCU. Like Seton Hall's gonna be a big time matchup they have really good guard play too. So that Okot, Mike Miles, even like guys, I guess I'm looking at guys that are like on that fringe. That's why I was talking about Peyton Watson, even like guys like Christian Coloco, does he kind of have that breakout and to become like a no-brainer first round guy? So like that's kind of, those are the type of guys that I think have potential to really break out. Zach Edey, Purdue, just kind of going down.
Well, I have to put in my shameless Vegas plug. So Julian Strother, Gonzaga is going to have a breakout tournament. He really is. And I want everybody to pay attention. And he is Vegas and he's going to do great. I'm not saying Gonzaga is going to win because I don't really know if they're going to win. Yeah. But I want to say Julian Strother. He's ready. He's coming. He's been playing huge this season. So here we go.
They need him to step up. Like you said, most people don't think the team is as good as they were last year, but they add Chet Holmgren. They obviously lost some pieces, but yeah, if Julian steps up, they have a chance. They're one of the few teams that have a chance to win. six straight games. And Ani, we'll talk more next week about that GEICO Nationals field and the state championships invitational. Obviously, Auburn, Washington looks like they're in. They're a team that's going to get that nod. That brag, it's going to come out on Wednesday right before the tournament starts. And, maybe Sidwell Friends gets in. Calvary Christian is going to be in. We know that. Yeah. So that's going to be very interesting. The week after the Final Four might be a little bit of basketball hangover, but this is going to be an interesting 2 weeks. So I appreciate the audience and appreciate the listeners staying with us. This was a long pod. Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, Ani, for giving us your insight and your time. We're going to wrap up here. Just want to let people know. I know, Ani, you wanted people to watch that YouTube version. We keep trying to grow that. People are listening to the audio version. So we thank you wherever you get your podcasts at. Make sure to tune into other podcasts, Kicks of Your Life with Jordan McLaughlin of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Noble and Roosh bring on some really great guests. Buckets and Breakdowns has some good some stuff. Chelsea, we're going to come back to you once we get more information about that women's drop. It happened on Friday, the 11th. Ooh, there were some cool things I saw online. I guess I talked to some of the models or some of the people that put it on. They really like the fit and feel. So girls, if you're listening, make sure you check out that at shop.ballislife.com. We get 15% off if you listen to the Paint Show. The one-time discount code for that 15% off is PAINT15. That's PAINT15. We have, shorts, backpacks, basketballs, mores. But for the girls, we have a special installment. It got released last Friday, so go check that out. But for Ronnie, Chelsea, and Ani, I think we're ready to log off. Thank you for listening. And until next time, we're out of here.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.